Is that plant behind you dying or is it healthy? It just looks very spindly.
No, what I need to do, I'm really reluctant to cut it back, but the problem is it's lost a lot of its bushiness at the top. And so like lower down, it's got like loads of new growth. Can you see?
Yeah.
But I know that it's really ridiculous, but I do sort of anthropomorphize my plants.
Yeah.
And so if it's like growing all happy and healthy down here, I'm really reluctant. See, look at all this growth down here. I'm really reluctant to cut it back because what you should do really, what you could do is cut it right back severely so that it will re-sprout. But
yeah,
you could do that.
You could give it a Brazilian soon.
Well.
Anyway, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong, a podcast where two exes who are still good friends talk about plants, pop culture, music, politics, despair, mental health, emergencies, and so much more. I'm Sean, and that's Josh. How are you, Josh?
Hi, Sean. I'm fine, thanks. I was just listening to your list. I was like, yep, check. Big
What
ticks.
do you think we talk most about? Recurring themes.
Capitalism, the Minogues, plants. I don't know. Mental health. Yeah, I don't know. It's politics, of course.
Just before we started recording, you and Hill, he was leaning over my shoulder and you're having a little conversation. And he said to you that he passed his life in the UK test. And that's for people who don't know, you have to do this culture and knowledge test about the UK that covers history, pop culture, sports, standards that you're meant to live up to as like a UK citizen. And it's the step you take to get permanent residence here. How funny would it be now? I've got the little booklet here.
Oh, okay. I was just looking on my phone. I was like, let's do some live questions because
can I ask you to see if you would?
I don't know anything about life in the UK.
Okay. Is the statement below true or false? The 40 days before Easter are known as Lent.
I want to say true. I know I've got a 50-50 chance. Yeah.
It's true. But you know, much of...
But is that UK based? It's not really UK based, is it? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I know,
Lent
but
is not exclusive to the UK. Anyway, go on.
Like so much of this is rooted in just assuming that everybody wants to know and believe the same things, you know? Which two were 20th century British discoveries or inventions? A, mobile phones and Walkmans. B, cash points and Walkmans. C, cloning a mammal and cash points. Or D, cloning a mammal and mobile phones.
Jesus fucking Christ. How the hell should I know? I mean, what person would know that? Like, just random.
And I mean, just for the sake of telling you, it's cloning a mammal and cash points, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But some of these other things were also 20th century inventions, but they were from maybe different countries. So, you know, it's really tricky. So you might know that mobile phones were invented in the 20th century, but it was in another country.
Okay.
And
what about,
you know,
can I quiz you? You passed this test how long ago? Like 15 years ago?
Maybe not that long ago, but a long time ago.
Okay. All right. Who were the first people to arrive in Britain in what we call the Stone Age? Farmers, hunter-gatherers, warriors, or pirates?
Hunter-gatherers.
Correct. Very good. Next question. When did Britain become permanently separated from the continent by the Channel? I mean, I would hazard a guess that
I think it was
less than 20% of people in the UK would know this.
I think it was 10,000 years ago without you even giving me options.
You are correct. Wow. Well done. I mean, this is it. Like,
I've been helping Hill study. So some of these things, I only know that one because it was a question he did in his test the other day.
All right. The Commonwealth has no power over its members and cannot suspend their membership. True or false?
What was that one?
The Commonwealth has no power over its members and it cannot suspend their membership. I can't even ask the question, let alone answer it.
I think they can suspend the membership. So I think that's false.
False? You are correct.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I think we don't need to
Well,
do a
let me
whole.
ask you one more.
Okay.
Which of the following statements is correct? Sir Andy Murray is the first British man to sail around the world, or Sir Andy Murray is the first British man to win a single tennis title in a Grand Slam tournament since 1936.
The latter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, well, look at this one. Is this statement below true or false? The British Constitution is contained in a single written document.
That's false.
But what does that mean?
Well, because Britain doesn't have a written constitution.
The British Constitution is not written down in any single document, and therefore it is described as unwritten.
Yeah.
Kind of like Natasha Bedingfield.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I'm sure that was the inspiration for her song. Was the
so there are hundreds and hundreds of questions. I think like I don't know how many there are, and when you go for the test, you do it on a computer, and it can be any variation of the questions, and not only can it be any mix of the questions, but the questions can be sort of swapped around. So instead of saying which of these is a true statement about Andy Murray, the question could be which statement is false.
Oh,
You
right.
know,
Just to try and keep people on their toes.
Yeah, and what type of tree did so and so hide in 14 something to escape something, and and then it'll give you 4 types of trees, and it's just it's so difficult to do, and but Hill passed, and so his next step is to apply for indefinite leave to remain.
Mm-hmm.
So
ILR. Oh well, congratulations, Hill.
Yeah. But if you fail, you're allowed to reset it as many times as you want, but you have to pay money each time.
Mm-hmm. Yet another cash grabbing scheme by the British government.
Yeah, money grubbing. Have you seen that there's a what's her name? Frida Kahlo exhibition coming to the Tate? Modern?
Yeah. It looks interesting.
Do you remember the first time? Well, okay. I always feel like I should give at least a little bit of background for people who don't know. But do you think there's anyone who doesn't know who Frida Kahlo is?
No, I can't imagine who would not know Frida Kahlo. Or even if they didn't know, like if you said the name Frida Kahlo, if you showed an image of her, they'd be like, oh yeah.
When do you think you first became aware of Frida Kahlo?
Well, I think probably it would have been the 90s. And I remember reading an interview with Madonna. And in the interview, it might have been the one she did with Carrie Fisher, actually, when Carrie Fisher interviewed her, perhaps. And she talked about a painting that she had in her bathroom. I think it was above her toilet, perhaps. And it was an original Frida Kahlo painting of her giving birth to herself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd heard the name previously, but I didn't really know what she was referring to.
That's weird because that's exactly my first remembrance of hearing about Frida Kahlo
really?
as well, as that same interview.
Yeah.
And I remember Madonna saying, it's a very Madonna thinks she's the most shocking person on the planet. And so she said, it's a very confrontational painting. And if I show it to anyone and they are repulsed by it or they don't like it, I know that they can't be my friend.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know, I don't think it was the same interview, but shortly after that, she was talking about how she was wanting to make a film of a biopic film of Frida Kahlo's life and play Frida Kahlo herself. And then, of course, Salma Hayek got that role. And I think, I don't know, my memory, as you know, is not that reliable, but I think it was probably around the time. When was that Frida film released with Salma Hayek?
It must have been in the 90s, right? The late 90s?
Was it? Or was it noughties? I think it was noughties, perhaps.
Let's do some live research.
Okay. And I think that was when I first sort of really understood who she was, her life. And I mean, obviously the film is not 100% accurate. It's a dramatization.
2002.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's a brilliant film. I think Salma Hayek is incredible as Frida. I think it's really beautifully made. I mean, I always have a bit of a problem with a film, a film in the English language when it's taking place in another country, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
come on, like,
But also, it's hard. What do you call it when you look back on something? Hindsight. I couldn't even think of the word hindsight. She's talked about how distressing it was to make that movie because of having to work with Harvey Weinstein,
yeah,
and how
yeah,
he pushed her and exploited her and made her feel unsafe
yeah.
and exploited. And so I find it's like a very interesting piece of work, and she's great. But mixed with the sort of artistic liberties that it took with the retelling and how awful Harvey Weinstein was to her, it's not something that I would think I'd rush back and watch again.
No, it does become a bit problematic, doesn't it?
And do you know what year Frida Kahlo was born? Could you hazard a guess?
I think it was about 1918.
It was 1907,
07,
and
okay.
she passed away in 1954. So she was very young when she died. It's interesting. I mean, could be seen as quite problematic, two white men sitting here discussing the most famous artist in the world, who is a brown woman, and giving our critique. But I was talking to Hill before we came on, because we were talking about the exhibition that's coming up, and he was saying that feelings about her in Mexico are quite mixed. I mean, people are proud of things that are Mexican having success, but also that she grew up in quite a wealthy family. But her and her husband, Diego Rivera, who in their lifetimes was a much more famous artist than she was, they really collected and almost to a point of fetishized indigenous art forms and dress and artifacts. And she lived a life of relative comfort, apart from her,
physical
the
ailments and
physical ailment, the
mental
pain
and physical struggles. Yeah.
and the pain she was in. But I mean, from a financial point of view,
Yeah.
she was educated. She lived in a nice part of the city, and she was born in Coyoacan, and so there's a lot of sentiment about somebody who, I'm not saying she exploited the imagery, but she took what was she found appealing about other cultures adjacent to hers, and she commodified it. And obviously, since she's passed away, I mean, it has turned into an industry. I mean, you can't walk down any street on the planet without seeing a picture of Frida Kahlo, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I was in Romania, like we discussed, and there were, in tourist shops, there were things with her face or her likeness on it, or her artwork on it.
What do you think she represents to people when they buy, like a Frida Kahlo tote bag or Frida Kahlo socks? What do you think because when you wear something like that, you're trying to make a statement. What do you think that statement is? Like,
I think people think they're they're tapping into like an outsider attitude, or like somebody who is, I mean, before punk existed, obviously, but that sort of punk kind of idea of living outside the rules and not following the rules, and being a maverick, and being a pioneer, and being the first of your kind to do something, and being a rebel. And so I think that that's what people see in Frida, but also, I suppose, like Madonna, or what other, I don't know, famous women through history who have been seen as troublemakers or rebel rousers or sexually liberated, like Mae West, or, a lot of the time they get held up to being, even though they get criticized for it as well, they're also celebrated for being that type of free spirit, or that sort of rebel. And I think that's what people see. They see it as a way to vicariously live through either the real or imagined rebellion that she embodied.
Yeah, I'm always a bit sort of remiss to talk about visual arts because I didn't really get any education on visual arts growing up, and I struggle sometimes to interpret them and appreciate them in the way that other people do. I mean, when it comes to music, that's different, but for visual arts particularly, I really do struggle sometimes. I find them inaccessible to me. And maybe that's just a personal thing, but um, there is something, I think, in my experience, there is something visceral about a lot of her art, and obviously that's been informed by her role in popular culture, so things like
Yeah.
the film, and the understanding of the struggles that she was going through, particularly in terms of her physical pain. And I mean, she's got, the really famous painting La Columna Rota, like the broken spine, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I did think, yes, that film that Harvey Weinstein made was very problematic, but I do think that it really did a fantastic job of representing her art, the way that it incorporated some of her images onto the
Yeah.
screen. And I think perhaps when people buy merchandise and wear images of Frida, I think it's maybe because they feel like she encapsulates the human condition in so many ways, like that she took pain, physical and mental and emotional pain, and she channeled that into her art so viscerally. And that is what everyone, I suppose, would aspire to, because without getting too sort of deep and meaningful, like what can we do with pain in whatever
Yeah.
form that takes? What can we do with it um, if we can't turn it into something incredible and beautiful and moving um, and
Yeah. But I
I
mean,
don't
there are
know.
a lot of people that live with pain in various forms that don't get to
Right, that's what I
channel
mean.
it and
So
put it into
maybe
anything.
her image is a way of feeling that they're tapping into something and channeling it through her even more, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, but yeah. Um, so I think, yeah, she is an icon, a true icon. And I don't know, it's so strange.
But,
Like,
also her heritage was diverse. Like her father was from Europe. Her mother was from the Americas, from, Mexico. And she, I think the biggest criticism from people who, I suppose, um, spend time critiquing her is that the way that she dressed was not the way that she would have dressed herself. They were the clothes of indigenous communities or
mm,
rural communities, and
hmm
particularly poorer people than what she was and what her family were. And that there was kind of like an appropriation of um, other cultures, and she used that to. I mean, she wasn't super rich from her art when she was alive, but she was celebrated for it. She had a
she
show
traveled
in
and
New York, and I think also people are attracted to what they see as like the naughtiness of it. Like she is recorded as being bisexual or having open explorations of her own sexuality. And I think that appeals to people. I think also people are attracted to a story of suffering. Like how we talked about how I'm obsessed with watching 9/11 videos. Like people, it's a real psychological thing that we do to
it's
ourselves.
suffering porn.
Yeah. And so people know that, she had a lot of health problems. She had quite a number of miscarriages. Her husband was like having sex with other people,
Including her sister.
including her sister, without sort of having an agreement with her about that. And
Mm,
so it's like a real like, oh, she really struggled and she made this art that's memorable.
yeah.
Also, there's something appealing to us humans, isn't there? Because everything we do is so fleeting and
Mm,
meaningless, that
mm,
seeing somebody live on in infamy and live
hmm
on for generations after their death, that's very appealing to us, that somebody is legendary.
Yeah.
It speaks to our ego that somebody can make a mark and somebody can matter, when really, in reality, nobody matters.
Yeah. And it was interesting, you know, when we lived in Mexico, going to see the places where her and Diego lived, seeing her art on display much more frequently than you would in other countries, probably. Seeing Diego Rivera's murals in various
Yeah.
parts of the city. And it was, there was a sort of kind of almost like a, for lack of a better term, a magic to it. That
Yeah.
this romanticized, celebrated couple was so evident in day-to-day life there. But I think I got, not to make it sound like we were sort of ahead of the curve or anything, but when we first went to Mexico in 2006, I think it was 2005, 2006, we went to the Blue House, the Casa Azul, that her and Diego shared, and it was a beautiful.
That's her original family home.
Yeah. And it was a really moving, beautiful experience. But every time that we went back, it became less and less enjoyable, because now, I mean, I stopped going because, you know, when you live somewhere, people will come and visit you. And we had lots of people come and visit us in Mexico. And every time they'd be like, oh, I have to go to the Casa Azul. And I used to go with them, but then after a certain number of visits, I was like, I can't go there anymore. It's so unenjoyable now. And I'd imagine it probably still is. Like, the queues would just stretch around the block, and it was, every room you'd go into was so crowded. The courtyard, which used to be this beautiful, peaceful, quiet space with just a few other visitors and like cats and stuff. And were there peacocks, or am I imagining that?
No, that was at the Dolores Almeida.
Oh yeah, Dolores Almeida. Yeah. But now it's just absolutely fucking rammed with visitors, and it's not a very enjoyable experience anymore, which is a shame, really.
And Hill was saying that there were so many other artists that came out of the same sort of movement and time period in Mexico that are just completely forgotten. And if you're an art critic, a lot of them were held in more esteem, like their style and the way that they actually created art was seen as more accomplished than Frida Kahlo.
Yeah,
and so
but then
she's become bigger than what she actually produced. You know, the legend or the idea of her is bigger than what she did.
That people apply that sort of same kind of thinking to music and stuff. But I just think, well, you know what? If it resonates, whether it's visual art, whether it's music or it's film, if it resonates with people, and if it stays with them and if it moves them, that's more important than somebody's, you know, technical abilities.
Well, sometimes good marketing can do wonders. And that, you know, like we talked in one of the last episodes about London Records, and they talk about how sometimes they would take people who weren't great, weren't the best, even the best that they had on their roster, and with good marketing and placement on radio and fixing the charts, they could get hit records for these people. And that can happen. Like, look at people who are famous now, like the Kardashians and, you know, like Jim Skin or whatever, people who don't really do anything. And with the right exposure and the right marketing, and maybe Frida is an early incarnation of that, of, you know, the right ingredients coming together and elevating somebody. She wasn't shit, but she might not have been the best, but she
wasn't shit.
No, but, you know, she got elevated amongst the noise because of a certain, like, you know, magic ingredients coming together.
Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Kylie and Madonna and how they don't have the most amazing voices, but that's not really what's important. Like, it's about how people can connect with them, or how they can connect with an audience is more important than their technical prowess. But yeah, I think I wonder whether Frida, you know, Frida was alive today, or if, you know, the ghost of Frida existed, what she would make of the popularity of her image. Because it's not so much that her art is that well known, it's that she is well known as a person.
Yeah, it's also, that's what I mean. It's like you don't see one of her paintings on a shirt. You see a representation of her likeness on a shirt.
Yeah.
And like you go into Camden where they sell all those crappy T-shirts, and there are pictures of like an artist or an AI or whatever has taken an image of Frida Kahlo and like a Daft Punk record cover, and they've merged them together. And so then it's got like, you know, Frida Kahlo written in the font that Daft Punk's written in, and she's kind of half dressed like them and they're half dressed like her. And it is so naff and horrible. And I mean, to start with, it would blow her mind, like trying to explain modern celebrity and modern culture and everything. But like that is so far out of her control, and it really has nothing to do with who she was as a human, right?
No, it's very strange, the narrative that sort of, or the mythology that's built up around her. I think I read an article, I can't remember, years ago now, but talking about how she was sort of like, she invented the selfie in a way, because she did so many self-portraits, and
Yeah.
she did them in a way that she was wanted to convey what was going on in her life at that point in time.
Yeah,
And
it was more revealing than observational, right? Like
yes,
it was revelatory. Is that what it is? Like where she was doing extreme things to the paintings to show
yeah.
either inner pain or inner turmoil or psychological torment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There was a narrative built into the existence of that painting, and so yeah, it was very much a selfie before obviously selfies existed.
And it
I,
would be weird for her if she was alive today, because A, she'd be in the Guinness Book of Records for being the oldest woman alive,
yeah,
but also in her lifetime, her husband, Diego Rivera, was immensely more famous and celebrated
yeah,
than her, mainly because of sexism.
hmm
But also, you know, he was a leading muralist in Mexico. He was globally famous. But
mm,
now, if you walked up to random people on the street, I would say 99 out of 100 people would at least recognize Frida Kahlo
mm,
as a famous artist, if not know her name. I think
mm.
most people would know her name. Most people on a street in London wouldn't know who Diego Rivera is. And that,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
to have that sort of flip on its head, that she went
hmm
from playing second fiddle to this man to now she is one of the most famous. I mean, she holds the record, right, of the most expensive painting sold by a woman artist.
Does she?
Yeah.
Wow. I
Like
don't know if if I I don't know what I did with the book. I don't know if I lent the book to you, but there's a really, really amazing Barbara Kingsolver novel called The Lacuna. And it's well, I mean, I won't explain the plot maybe, but it's set in Mexico City during the time of Diego and Frida, sort of starting
mm,
to live together and work together, and
yeah,
the novel takes place over several decades, but it's a really, really incredible book. I highly, highly recommend it. I
okay.
think I've always talked about, I always end up talking about Barbara Kingsolver novels on this podcast. I think she's such a great writer, but that book in particular, The Lacuna,
Yeah,
is incredible. So I recommend it to everyone.
nice. So you were talking to me the other day about a feeling you were having, just to pivot a little bit. You were having a
Um,
feeling of not disappointment, but a little bit of conflicted feeling about people bandwagoning and jumping on the Green Party um, bandwagon. Like, can you explain that to me a bit more? Because I wasn't 100% clear on what you were talking about.
well, I was at like a social thing the other night, and among my social circle, most people are voting Green at the moment, and of course, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Um, and I think I have to also preface whatever I say next with the fact that the Green Party in the UK and in Australia, and I would imagine around the world, but they're the two Green parties that I'm familiar with. Um, Although they are the Green Party, and their name and their creation and existence have been centered around environmental factors, I
yeah,
would say that more or less they have always had a very strong uh, social what's the word I'm looking for? Like socially progressive political ideology as well. They've had quite progressive politics when it comes to things like queer communities, trans existence, racial bias, sexism, misogyny. They've always been quite a forward-thinking progressive party.
Yeah.
I believe. I mean, our listeners and viewers can tell us if that's not the case. So, but the main focus, I think, has been about the environment, and they are called the Green Party. And so I was at this social gathering the other night, and like I said, most of the people there were had voted Green in the recent elections that we had here in the UK. But I was looking around and I was a bit sort of like, oh, none of them seem to actually care about the environment. They're voting Greens more because of their social progressive. There's another term that it escapes me at the moment. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know what you're talking
like
about.
like progressive politics. Like anyway, whatever. It'll come to me or it won't. But they're voting Greens for those reasons, not for
what reasons?
for the progressive, like social politics of them.
Yeah.
Or, and this is, I mean, I don't want to sound too cynical or skeptical, or that's never stopped me before. Are they just jumping on the bandwagon because they're just popular at the moment among sort of a certain demographic? Is it because the Green Party is the only party that really seems to have queer identities, which includes trans identities, at the core of their beliefs and of their policy proposal?
Yeah, but what's the difference between deciding to vote for a party because it appeals to you on even a surface level or jumping on a bandwagon? Like, why do you need to make the differentiation?
Well, no, yeah, yes, on one hand, but then on the other hand, it's like, with veganism. You and I have been vegan for decades, and there was this big sort of interest in plant-based eating. I don't know how long ago, 10 years ago, maybe it sort of started really. And you saw lots of people jump on the bandwagon, but they weren't doing it for the same reasons that you or I were doing it, which is an animal rights perspective. And on one hand, you're like, you know what, doesn't matter why you're here. What's important is that you're here, sort of thing. You could look at it from that point of view. But then it kind of dilutes the message in a way, I think, or it muddies the waters.
But maybe the message is just changing with the changing demographics.
Yeah, but it bothered me, and it bothered me that people are sort of like jumping on this green bandwagon, but have absolutely no concern for the environment. And I'm like, well, can you really jump on that bandwagon?
Well, yeah, but I'm a bit lost by what you're asking. Would you rather these people not be aligning themselves with the Green Party because they don't agree with everything you think they should agree with?
Well, no, and I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying there is
should they vote Tory or Labour or Lib Dems instead?
No, they shouldn't. Absolutely not. But I suppose it just. I find there's a bit of conflict within it, I think, and I don't think there is a resolution. I don't think there's a perfect solution or answer.
The UK Green Party, or I mean, they're known as the Green Party of England and Wales, right? Because the Green Party, in 1990, the Scottish and Northern Ireland contingents broke away and formed their own parties. So you've got the Scottish Greens, and I think there is still a Northern Ireland Greens, but now it's the Green Party of England and Wales as the main Green Party. But that's not a static sort of fixed idea of a party either. It's always been moving. Like, it only started in 1972, and I'm just reading here, it was actually then called People. That was the name of the party. Was the People Party, and it was founded in Coventry. And I'm reading this now, but I heard an interview. I listened to an interview with Rachel Millward, who's one of the deputy leaders of the Green Party, the other day, and she explained this when she was asked, like, why aren't you focusing on trees when that's what the Greens are famous for? And she said, well, actually, the party, if you go back to the roots, was environmental and social justice, and it was called People to show that it was.
Social justice was the term I was trying to find earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so it was called People, and then it changed in 1975. For the next 10 years, it was called the Ecology Party.
Okay.
And it was shown to establish a clearer recognition of itself as a political group around environmental issues, concerned with environmental issues. And then in 1985 to now, it's known as the Green Party. And these changes have been a response to the changing demands of the members. Like people are saying, okay, green is more inclusive. It doesn't just mean the environment, it means progressive politics. So the Ecology Party was too narrow for the mission. And the name before that, the People Party, or People, it didn't speak enough to the environmental aspects of what. And so now the idea of having it be called the Green Party, it's trying to be an umbrella term for everything, for like social justice, for workers' rights, for caring for animals, for
the environment.
Yeah, environment, movement of people, forced and otherwise. So it's trying to be more of an umbrella term. And so when you get that, you're going to get people who join the party because one or more of those elements appeals to them as a voter. So they might see it and go, hey, I hate what all the other major parties are doing around trans rights, so I'm going to vote for this party. But they really don't have any interest in any of the other topics. Or I really like what they're saying about wealth tax and taxing the elite when no other major party is doing that, and I don't trust anyone, so I'm going to vote for them. And I'm happy to support the other progressive policies they have, but they're not my main concern. And so you're going to end up with a mixed bag of people. We won't have a contingent where everybody agrees that every topic is as important as the next. And so you're going to get people, like you're going to go to queer events where people are a bit vapid about certain topics, not to say that your friends or acquaintances are vapid, but you're going to get these people who don't think deeply about other topics such as environmental degradation or war or genocide or whatever, but they're going to think about queer rights and they're going to prioritize that when they vote. And so you're going to find yourself in bed with these people who might not care about other things you care about. And we know, you were talking about how long we've been vegan. We know that we've had to be on the front lines of many resistances over the last few decades with people who eat meat or do other things that we don't personally agree with, or we don't see it as the best way forward for people in our society, but we're fighting other fights together. Take, for instance, like the miners and the gays, like we talk a lot about on here, and how they had to join forces to fight Thatcherism. And yeah, I think the Green Party of England and Wales has exploded in membership and popularity so much and so quickly that it's a very broad church now.
But my concern, I suppose, is that the support will be fleeting, that people are just sort of fair weather Greens, and that like in the same way that there was this boom in like plant-based eating, and then a few years later, individuals and restaurants and organizations were just like, oh, actually, yeah, we're not so into that anymore. The wave has passed, sort of thing.
Well, that's up to you and me and other people to do the hard work of keeping people there. Like, we talked the other day how I used to give all those speeches about, I'd give talks at vegan events and stuff where I would say, for me, veganism is about getting people to come across the bridge to Vegan Island, and some of them stay forever, some of them stay for the weekend, and then they go back, and then they come back again a month later. I think the Green Party is going to be like that. So we need to get people to come to that set of ideals and that way of working and that way of thinking politically. And then we need to do the hard campaigning work. Like one issue might get them there, but then it's up to all of us who care to do the hard work to get them to stay, or to get them to start thinking about the other issues that matter. And that's the hard work. So yeah, I mean, I don't think people should be I suppose, judged or
No, no.
derided for caring about one issue, but it's only because look at the political landscape of our lifetimes, how absolutely abhorrent it is, and how we have been pushed to not care about anything and not have any power. And so people like the Green Party are trying to empower people that they can be the change in the community. You know, they can be the political change we need to see. And so that's what we need to do. Yeah, there is a danger that people will come and then leave when it doesn't go their way, or they lose interest, or another populist comes along and tells them something they want to hear.
Well, it concerns me, I suppose, that people are sort of jumping on the Green bandwagon, but actually, if the Greens got into power and started putting policies in place which infringed on those very same people's rights to do the things that they've always done and enjoy doing and want to do, then they'll be like, oh, actually, no, I'm not, I'm not into the Greens anymore. And I mean, that's just, I suppose that's the nature of democracy, and that's the nature of politics
That's right.
within a democracy. But yeah, it concerns me, I suppose. Yes, I think two things can be true at the same time. And that is that, yes, I'm delighted that the Greens are having this surge in support. But also there is a part of me that is concerned about the longevity of that support and the seriousness of that support, and whether people are truly adopting sort of the values and politics that the Green Party exist and stand for.
But that's going to be a long, long time coming, and it's going to have highs and lows, and people are going to drift in and out of it. You know, we live in a liberal democracy. I mean, that's what it's referred to as. But it's an immensely unjust and uneven system that we live in. And so people need to be encouraged to find their voice and find ways of working and ways of policing ourselves that bring those levels of inequality closer together. And so there's less suffering and there's less enrichment at the top. And that's going to take a long time. And the Tories the Conservative Party isn't going to do it for us. Reform isn't going to do it for us. The Labour Party, maybe there was a thought a few decades ago that they might, but all of these parties now champion the elite, they toe the line, they spread the misinformation and propaganda of the mass media, which is owned by billionaires. And getting people together under the banner of something like the Green Party seems to be the only way to break out of this. I mean, it's so weird to say that we're in a liberal democracy, but life is getting worse for us and more unequal. But it is.
I know we've only got a couple of minutes, maybe we don't really have time to talk about it, but what are your thoughts on Andy Burnham?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I think that the Labour Party is desperate because Keir Starmer is seen as so unworthy of the role and so ineffectual now. I think they're desperate and they're looking for anybody. I mean, the makeover they're trying to do on Wes Streeting as well, giving him a new haircut, sending him around the country, I mean, it's just appalling. He's part of it. Andy Burnham is part of a system that has been stripping away disability rights, stripping away protections for trans people, have been supporting genociders, have been working with systems of oppression. I don't really see him as any different. I don't see him as a champion of anything. And he would just be the new face of Labour that has been moving more and more to the right through our lifetime. And so, no, I don't see him as any big change or a positive change. I just see him as a change.
I would largely agree with you. The only point of interest, I think, with Andy Burnham is that I can't say his name, Andy Burnham, is that he has said he would introduce a bill for proportional representation within UK politics, And so that is extremely interesting to me because, as I've said, so many times before, I think it's a crying shame, like a criminal shame, that the UK doesn't have proportional representation in its voting system. So that would be a welcome change. But yeah, I don't think he represents enough of the important things to really garner my sort of attention or my vote.
No, and he's also beholden to a system that corrupts people and controls people and manipulates them into passing certain policies, which he might not even agree with himself. But he's part of a system that doesn't allow progressive politics to come to the front.
Yeah, I'm really, really terrified about the next general election here in the UK because reform are gaining a lot of momentum. And
well, actually, I think they're slipping in percentage points. If you look at it over the last sort of elections they had, this time around in these local elections they actually got less percent of the vote. So they're not growing anymore. It went down slightly, but it was still a sizable number, and it's scary. But I think if people could just mobilize and galvanize behind either a united or a green, a united left or a green contingent, I think that would be the way forward. Because even if the Green Party don't win a majority, showing that people support those policies and progressive politics, it pushes the people like the Labour Party to have to incorporate that more and more. And that's why representational, what do you call it?
Proportional representation.
Proportional representation works to affect change within mainstream parties.
Yeah. All right, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode. We will be back next week with another episode. Until then, you can go to veganbeerfest.co.uk if you want to buy some tickets to come along and celebrate in September 2026 with me. And you can go to fatgayvegan.com to see everything else that I'm up to. What else have you got to say, Josh?
Yes, you can check out my music at Josh and the Jumpstarts, and I promise I will trim my bush.
Give your bush a Brazilian. Give your bush a Brazilian.
Yeah. Okay, folks, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll be back in your feeds next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.